Hello everyone and welcome to day 15 of the May Painting Challenge. And settle in, this is gonna be a long video filmed in many parts because I have a lot of time to paint today, so I'm gonna get a lot of stuff done. I've already started this morning by base coating certain parts, namely the parchment and the bone, and it might not be obvious the difference because I've used these colors. I've used Vallejo model color khaki for the parchment and Citadel Xandri dust for the bone. There is a slight greenish tinge to the khaki. Otherwise, these are pretty similar tan colors. So, yeah. They kind of look similar, and unfortunately they're going to be highlighted up with similar colors as well, colors like bone white and off-white. However, the difference is that the bone will get tinted with washes. The parchment will not. Also, most of the parchment will get little scribblings of something that's supposed to look like writing on them. So that will hopefully differentiate them a bit. What else have I done? Oh, I got started on this guy. I just slapped a base coat of game color dark green on him just to get an idea of what he's going to look like. All of 10 seconds work. I prepped a bunch of dudes. These mummies. See, I've done the bases, kind of. They look a bit splotchy. I don't know, I might clean those up. I might not. They're not important. And I've done some dry brushing to bring out the details on the bandages. Again, khaki, bone white, dead white. I'm going to try a technique suggested by another painter in another video. I believe it was engineer Jeff I got this idea from. Don't quote me on it, but he's done a lot of videos on painting Reaper bones. And in one of them, he's doing these mummies and he's doing washes to finish them off. He's doing what I call a top wash, that is a wash at the end, of a dark brown, just to make them the contrast even more. And he puts on a spray varnish before he does the wash. And I thought that was an interesting idea, so I want to try that out. But to be scientific about this, I have these four. I own 3 cans of spray varnish, 2 different brands of matte and 1 of gloss. So I'm going to try them all out. Rather, I'm going to do a control figure which I don't varnish, and then 1 each of the different brands of varnish, and then put on a coat of this, the Armor Painter Quick Shade Strong Tone, which is my new dark brown wash because I use up my Agrex Earth Shade, and well, I have a little bit of this umber wash, but there's actually not enough in the bottle for all 4 of these figures, and I want it to be the same paint for all 4, so I'm going with this because this is a brand new bottle, only just been opened. So I'll show you the results of that at probably the tail end of this video, well, of today's video. But let's get started on some highlights here. Let me put on my glasses, and I'm just going to show you how I highlight I take a really small amount of paint in the brush, and what am I going to highlight? Okay, let's see, these books. Well, I think the entire surface here needs to be highlighted, and you can see it's not covering evenly because I haven't drenched the brush in paint. There's, let's see if you can focus, there's so little paint here. It's almost a dry brush. It's an overbrush actually, but that's okay because parchment, you don't want a completely even look. You might, oops, well, the edges here, Make it a little bit brighter. It's okay if it's a tiny bit splotchy, actually. There. Now for these scrolls, I want to emphasize these edges. Do I want to go in behind? Well, a little bit. I'm just going to draw a thin line here and leave a lot of it in shadow and catch these edges. Am I in focus? Oh well. And hooray, suddenly I'm getting a low battery warning. This is the annoying thing. One of the annoying things about my camera is that it goes straight from full battery to the blinking light. There's no intermediary step where it says, oh, you got like half battery life left. No, it's always from perfectly okay to warning, warning, danger, danger. So that's a bit annoying. Let's see if I can get some more of this parchment done. I'm gonna have to hold it in a different way to access these dudes. And I'm leaving the sides in the khaki color and the little thing in between these two ribbons. That little portion, I'm leaving the darker color, of course underneath as well. That's simple enough. The tricky part is going to be this banner here on the leg. What to actually paint, how to actually I can't really talk while doing this. How to leave a little bit in shadow here. Just being really careful. I'm going by feel. I can't really explain what I'm doing. I'm not sure if it's visible. Let's see, that's sort of focused, right? You can kind of tell I've left little portions of the base color here and there, like underneath this edge, just underneath that. But I do color in here, the lower edge. And oops, I went over onto the blue there. Let's see if I can get that out of there. No, I'm gonna have to go in and fix that with some blue paint. But that's okay. So I'm gonna have to break here to recharge the battery, but some more stuff will get painted and I'll be back in what seems like a moment to you. And welcome back. So what I've done so far off camera is to apply the first highlight to the big skull on the shoulder. I think I mentioned when I was doing the little skull on the backpack that I do quite a lot of highlights on bone for big pieces, but for small pieces like these little skulls I'll do fewer highlights. So it's time now to put on what will be the second highlight on the big skull, but the first highlight on the small skulls, which is the bone white color. And let me just start with the little ones, just to get an idea of. While I'm doing this, I could answer the question of the day. The question of the day is which technique you most want to improve. And if I took the challenge last year to follow up, but I didn't answer that question last year. I was not in last year's challenge, so I can't tell you anything about progress in that sense. So I'm just gonna get out there and say that the technique I most want to improve at the moment is non-metallic metal, NMM. And I made a few early attempts to learn that technique. A while back I did a video where the question of the day was to show off some miniatures you're proud of, and I showed you among other things a wizard with some NMM on it. And I think I said at the time that this was a very early attempt, and it was. It's just really, really basic, really rough. and I'm not particularly proud of that portion of that mini. I like the mini as a whole, but not the NMM. Now, if you'll remember, there was also a barbarian, a bald barbarian with a big sword there. In fact, I originally tried to do an NMM on his sword, but I was so unhappy with the results that I just scrapped that. I painted over it with my normal true metallics instead, because it just looked, I thought it just looked awful. Just, couldn't stand to look at it. So that is definitely a technique I need to do some work on to get better at. And this highlight is going on pretty much overall. Looking reasonably good. Okay. Next up is the third highlight on the big skull. Now I'm going to shrink this a bit, and let's see. What do I want to highlight? I want to highlight the brow, the cheekbones here, the sort of upper lip. Can you see what I'm doing? Okay, no. The sort of upper lip here, maybe the front teeth. And the tricky question is, when you have like a dome here like this, what would get hit? Well, kind of the top like this, and there would be a bit of a highlight here in the middle. Would anything here get hit? Well, just the top. Just drawing lightly like that. And now the final highlight, which is off-white, which we will only place a little bit of like the top here and the top of this. The top of the dome of the skull here, and it's a little bit almost dry brushing here. I have to be careful so the paint doesn't actually dry in the bristles, because then you're in trouble. And looking at it from above, what would get hit? The extreme tips of these brows and just the little cheeks and maybe top of the nose there. Yeah. That looks kind of stark, but we will bring it down a little bit. Now I'm using the same to do the extreme highlights on the parchment, like the top edges of these books and down there and sides, a little bit across like so. And for the scrolls, simply the edges here, the ragged, can you see what I'm doing? Doesn't focus. Like the ragged edges of these would get lit, like so, and same here, just the dragging it across the edges a little bit, drying. What else can I talk about? I've been thinking about bonus projects, like I said, what to go with next when this guy's finished. And in fact, I realized there are some minis. Let's see. You see this? I have no idea if this is focusing or not. My eyes are not focusing. Oh well. There's some minis on their way to me in the mail from across the pond. It's kind of hard to predict when they will arrive. But those are some important minis because they're related to a game I'm playing right now. And if and when they arrive, well, when they arrive, they will immediately get bumped to the top of my painting queue. And hopefully they will arrive early next week. That's seems reasonable. They might, but I can't know for sure that they will. So if those minis arrive, they will be my backup project. If not, I still need a plan C. You know, if the plan B doesn't work, go with plan C. And I've been thinking a little bit about that. What else do we need? By the way, off camera, I went in and fixed. I had forgotten the metallic studs here on the bolter casing. You see a bit more silver against the red. And I'm looking here and I see between this silver portion and that silver portion, I should really try to get some blue. Because it doesn't, it mixes together there. Yeah, that's better. A bit there as well. Nice. Attention to detail, people. Okay. So now the annoying thing is that the parchment and the bone look pretty much the same. But if you'll recall, what I did to the bone on the backpack to make it look more natural and more realistic was to actually go in with the flesh tone shade and put it on top, just as more as a glaze than anything, just to give it another hint of color. And let's see, what sort of brush do I want to use for this? Ah, well, we'll go with this one. No matter, it won't destroy it. Just take it. Oops, sorry for burping there. A small amount and tint this. I'm not sure why it stopped filming there. If there's like a limit to how long I can make the videos. But I just hit record immediately again and started going. So I don't know. Strange. And just give it a little bit of itty bitty wash. This one is more overall. And so I'm gonna let this dry and come back with two things: finishing off the parchment and showing you the results of those mummies experimentation. Let me see if I got everything. Okay, be right back with that. And the washes have dried, and I even fixed, I noticed that I'd forgotten to do the handle of the sword, but I went in and painted that the bone colors and washed that too. And let's see if you can see how it, no, that's right there. Looks sort of cool, I hope. The final thing I always do for parchment, like the purity seals, is to add a little bit of writing. And I don't actually write anything, it's too the letters would be too small. I just add little squiggly black lines, and I like to do this not with paint but with a pen. I use a .05 Let me show you. Very, very fine tip. And if we can start on the books perhaps. Let's see. And just go in and little squiggles, and you can break them up like that. And on the Purity Seals it's even smaller. You don't want to cover the entire, it's just kind of dots when they're this thin. Yeah, you know, most people won't even look at that. For this banner here, I was hoping to be able to write actual letters. Let's see if I can. Start in the middle here. What I'm doing is I have a word in mind of 5 letters, so I take the 3rd letter, put it in the middle, and just so I know that it's all gonna fit. Nobody can. It's impossible to read what this is saying, but it's supposed to say logos, which is Greek for word. But there's some writing on there, and we have just about completed this guy except for the sword blade, which I will save for tomorrow. Now, I promised you I'd also show you the results of my mummy experiment. Now, I didn't explain, the video I got the idea from didn't actually talk about why it was done. My theory is that the varnish is to make the wash behave differently, to make it sort of slide off the upper surfaces and just collect in the recesses, and perhaps not to mix so much with the base colors, because I mean, theoretically, a wash is very, very, very wet. There's a lot of water in it. It could reactivate the paint and sort of create a blend. I'm not sure that would realistically happen, but anyway, let's look at the results. Now, here we have the one that I did not varnish. He is simply the way he is. Here is the first one with a matte varnish. Let's have them side by side. There is a slight difference to my eyes. The shadows look a bit deeper on this guy with the varnish on it. It did not tint the upper portions as much. I can only hold 2 at a time, so here's one matte varnish compared to the other. Let's not have my hand behind it so you can see. Pretty similar, I would say. I kind of prefer the look of this one. The camera screen doesn't really show the difference much, but this one looks less yellow. And so if we take the one I like best and compare it with the one I use the gloss varnish on, that's pretty good too, actually. Let's compare that to the unvarnished one. Yeah, I mean, the differences are very, very slight. And I don't know that I'm really gonna bother with doing this technique for run-of-the-mill rubbish minis like these bones guys. But it was an interesting test. Well. Anyway, that's what we got done today. I might do some work on some more Bones. I'll show you. I've primed a few other Bones minis. This is Mr. Bones himself, who was the mascot of the Kickstarter. And this is a flying bug. And this is a crawling bug. These will get done, you know, when I have time left over. But I'll see you tomorrow to finish up this guy. I'm going to do the sword. That's going to be quite experimental. I have no clue how that's going to turn out. I have some ideas about what to do, but I'm not sure what the results will be. Exciting times ahead. So see you tomorrow. This is Doc Eon, signing off.